It's been mentioned a few times about the talent pool in Estonia, and I think it's probably interesting to get both sides because for your offices, you need presumably software skills, high-tech skills, highly trained workers perhaps. For the mill, you need a cost-effective workforce that can handle that type of labor. Do you find that it's been easy for you to find the type of worker that you need?
Yes, I think we haven't had any problem recruiting at all. As I say, with a lot of the, I think generally we have an excellent workforce there. We haven't had any with the other mills, the demise of a lot of other sawmills. We have no shortage of labour there at all. Yeah.
I think there are a couple of points that come out from what the industry folk are saying, and that is high value added is important. And the other side of the coin is that in terms of regional geography, the reality is that Estonia is not really a Central European regional hub, because a lot of the innovative technologies, and there are some dramatic innovations that are coming through in biotech and in terms of IT and software design, they're actually more linked into places like Silicon Valley and Finland. And I think that what that tells you is that in many ways, with everybody knows Skype, of course, but with many of these key innovations, Estonia is very, very firmly on the global map. But it's in very specific areas.
Talking about the talent pool, I mean, it's not a deep pool. We must emphasise, what's the population?
1.35 about now.
Yeah,
About
1.35 million.
600,000 working people.
Yeah, exactly. But so huge operations, I don't tend to point towards Estonia. Go to the bigger countries. But the other thing I'd like to bring up is Silicon Valley. With Skype being bought over by eBay, has Silicon Valley discovered Estonia? Is there a strong connection between the two?
Well, Silicon Valley is always very inwards oriented, so they like companies that are in Silicon Valley, but it has opened us up a connection between the Estonian IT specialist and the Silicon Valley opportunities, whereas there's a lot of people right now moving from Estonia to Silicon Valley with their companies and therefore achieving the kind of exposure that they would want.
Yes.
Whereas obviously in Estonia, there, as you mentioned, there's not that many people, and that kind of limits the opportunities for some of the very bigger companies with big operations. But what I want to emphasize is the fact that there's some very specialized skills in certain niches that are absolutely world class.
We shouldn't forget on a more general level, and I employ a number of Estonian secretaries, PAs and so on, very rarely have they thought of putting the 4 or 5 fluent languages they speak on their CVs even. It's merely taken as a given that they'll speak English, Finnish, German, Swedish, maybe German as Russian, well as Russian and Estonian. And so the language skills, and English is a compulsory language now from the age of 7, but of course it's the language of IT as well. But the language skills are prized in other countries, but not so prized within Estonia itself. But being a very small country, it's not unnatural that there is a language skill.
Pretty much taken for granted, I guess.
That's right.
I have an interesting fact here is the last census, which was in 2006, they counted that there was 109 languages spoken by Estonians, so that's about 1.3 million people speaking 109 languages. I think that's something special to talk about.
And I think it brings home to the point that people look at Estonia and they go, it's very small, it's a country the size of Surrey. But what they don't talk about is that in certain key areas, it's the world leader at what it does. So I think the size is kind of not really relevant. When you're the number one, you're number one. In a global talent pool. And I think what I find very powerful is that the people I deal with have incredible focus on accuracy. Now, it does mean that the softer skills, the marketing that we spoke of earlier, maybe they are slower to get up the learning curve on that. But in terms of the basic engineering and fundamental talents, they really are very, very strong. And I find that really remarkable. And I know that across Central and Eastern Europe you can see engineering and mathematics skills that are dramatically ahead of those in the United Kingdom, for example. But I would also say that the reliability of what you're getting, the accuracy, the hard-working element is particularly obvious in Estonia.
I think somewhat lack of marketing abilities is actually an opportunity for investors, considering that the skills are there, the technical abilities there, and then the environment that really supports innovation is there. So for foreign companies to come in and take advantage of that is basically a win-win situation for all the parties involved.
And of course what we have not mentioned, though we've alluded to, is the fact that on re-independence from the Soviet Union in 91, the then President Merry, who regrettably has passed on, had two guiding aims. One was to give the country to the young, and this is where you see the innovators without baggage, without history that they have to overcome, coupled with, and you can't be completely bad about the communist system, it was a good education system, and that was continued into the New Republic. Young people given the opportunity, young people looking westwards all the time, and the beginnings again in Estonia then of a middle class which had been totally unknown for the 70 or 60 previous years. A middle class who want to buy things, look to the West in terms of material attributes, buying houses, cars, consumer goods, all good for the internal economy. But a coupling of the young, talented people in the various areas, not imbued with 100 years, it's always been done this way, therefore it's the only way. I think it's one of the greatest gifts that Estonia has.
I would agree with that. I mean, we're starting to see sort of a new breed of people in their early and mid-20s who are extremely entrepreneurially minded, have extremely focused commercial. I mean, extremely focused commercials. It is. I mean, it scares me a little bit. Some of these young guys that we see who are sort of 23, 24, who understand how to go out and get business, how to develop it, what a profit and loss account is and how it should run for their individual department, and we see that as a really big thing for these next, certainly our business plan there for the next 3 to 5 years, which gives us confidence that we might be able to start to develop Tallinn as a profit centre as well as a cost centre.
I mean, that absolutely reflects the government policies over the last 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the commitment to deregulation, to openness, to transparency has been absolute. And I don't think there's a single economy anywhere in the world that has seen such a dramatic transformation from complete Soviet hidebound overregulation to an incredibly flexible, entrepreneurial, fostering culture. Yeah. And I think that's an amazing achievement. And really, I think it reflects the primary offer of Estonia is good quality people in an exceptionally business-minded environment.
Yeah.
And I think
I think honesty is very important as well. It's a very honest country to do business in. What you see is what you get, and that's quite refreshing.
It certainly is.
I think that environment, is what we've been talking about, has created a culture where I would say entrepreneurship is almost as a religion. It's a funny fact again, but our education system was very much emphasizing entrepreneurship studies over the last 10 years, and maybe even a little bit too much, but I think the benefit of that was that many of the people that actually went to study business already had the technical skills. So when we look at today, many of the CEOs of the most innovative companies are actually people with technical backgrounds that studied entrepreneurship, because that was something that was just so popular and so well regarded in Estonia.
Talking about the workforce, do you feel that there are tensions between the sort of Russian and Estonian sort of, there's quite a high percentage in the Russian, ethnically Russian workers and Estonian workers. Do you feel that those tensions are a problem at all, or the trading relations with Russia have been difficult, haven't they, as well?
I would like to separate the business from the politics, and when we look at it from the business point of view, for example, companies like Alcatel that was recently bought by Ericsson in Tallinn, where majority of the workforce is Russian-speaking population of Tallinn, working side by side with Estonians, and this is happening in every company.
Don't see any problems.
And we don't see any problems in that. And there has been some regional tensions, obviously, more on the border of Estonia and Russia, like areas like Narva, where there is actually no problem. What is that the company might have 100% Russian-speaking workforce, but that doesn't create any tensions. Whereas it's just the way things are in some regions.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that the politics of the Russian Federation are fairly poisonous, and I think a lot of Russian speakers who are increasingly Estonian citizens can tell the difference between an open, transparent, dynamic democracy and a country which seems to be going backwards on all fronts. So I think that within the Estonian society, I certainly see, after the events of 2 or 3 years ago, where there was a great deal of tension in the air, I see many people who are friends of mine who are Russian speakers saying, well, look, what an advantage we have. We live in an open, dynamic economy. We speak the local language. We speak Estonian. And we can also access the Russian market with very little problem. And I think that's very encouraging. And certainly, I think, Gert is absolutely right. Business relationships have really not been affected so much by the politics. And the social relationships inside the country are less problematic.